The Agile Practice Guide is a very important ingredient for your PMP exam, and lots of professionals who have gotten certified in the past 6 months since PMI changed the exam in 2021 will tell you just that. In fact, a lot of them will tell you that the PMP exam has upwards of 60 to 70% of Agile. Some folks will even tell you it got up to 90% in Agile and hybrid. Just ask enough PMPs. You'll find that Agile is huge. For that reason, we're going to be having the Agile Practice Guide Power Review. And this is going through the entire Agile Practice Guide. If you haven't been through the Agile Practice Guide before, no problem. Show up for training and we will take you through the entire guide. I encourage you, go on down to agileaficionado.com, sign up, and we will look forward to seeing you. Now, here's what we're going to be presenting in the training. How do I know what to focus on for the PMP exam? You have this book. You have this book. Friendly advice. I know PMP students are always looking for shortcuts. But this one, I'll just tell you honestly, what prohibits you from reading this? Read the whole thing, right? Just read the whole thing. Read it. Get over and done with. And then focus. I'm going to call out pages you should focus on. Again, it's the Agile Practice Guide. And the question is, what do I focus on? So let me give you some context. First of all, you need to understand the manifesto, know the manifesto, understand it, embrace it, understand it, let it sink in. And then understand the principles. So page 1 is kind of like the layup for what is coming ahead. And then all these details I'm talking about, page 8, the Agile Manifesto and mindset. The mindset, it trumps everything. Very important, the mindset. And then if you go to page 9, you've got the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto. Internalize that, okay? So page 8 and 9, they need to be understood. And then we've got page 10, shows the relationship between the Agile Manifesto, values, principles, and common practices. These help you. And then just take a look at figure 2-4 on page 11 and try and understand the umbrella, the Agile umbrella. It says Agile is a blanket term for many approaches. Try and understand at a high level, okay? So you can see they've broken Agile into some smaller pieces there, but honestly, we know that 70% of the world of Agile uses Scrum. A lot of people, they don't want to call it Scrum, come up with all sorts of inventive names. Be honest, it's Scrum. Just tweak something. And we're grateful that Ken and Jeff gave it to us for free. So stop trying to pretend that they didn't create it or that you created something different. Enough said. Enough said. Let's go on. Please ignore that. PMP students, you won't even know what that's all about. All right. And we have a section on Lean and Kanban on page 12. Okay. Not a bad one to read. All right. A very helpful image on page 14. It reads, Uncertainty and Complexity, model inspired by the Stacy complexity model. That's one to read and understand as well. Please read page 18, table 3-1. Please read page 19, figure 3-1. These help you embrace and understand Agile a lot better, okay? And then read everything from page 20 all the way to page 32, because the PMI expects you to understand tailoring. Now, as you read from 20 to 32, pay attention to page 27. Figure 3-6, Agile development followed by a predictive rollout. Just shows you Agile could be first and then a predictive approach. And then it shows you you could have an Agile predictive sandwich, so to speak, figure 3-7. And then you can have a little bit of Agile mixed into predictive, figure 3-8 on page 28. And then you can have a little bit of predictive mixed into Agile, page 28, figure 3-9. Okay. There's a rather interesting page on mixing Agile approaches, page 31, and then page 32, okay, which is quite helpful. All right. I would also recommend focusing on servant leadership, especially those of you taking the exam in 2021. Please focus on servant leadership. Do that. Page 31, oh, I beg your pardon, page 33, page 34, page 35. Very good read, page 36. For those of you just coming, we're talking about the Agile Practice Guide. I'm showing you what to focus on. Honestly, if you took one afternoon of 3 hours, locked yourself in a room, focus on these pages, I'm telling you, it will add value to your PMP prep, trust me, to your PMP exam. Okay, we have page 37. Let me just read it because I know some people might fly over it anyway, but this is an important one because there's often a misconception that in the world of Agile, the project manager is axed. It's not really the case. We could still have a project manager even in an Agile environment. It says, the role of the project manager in an Agile project is somewhat of an unknown because many Agile frameworks and approaches do not address the role of the project manager. Some Agile practitioners think the role of a project manager is not needed due to self-organizing teams taking on the former responsibilities of the project manager. However, pragmatic Agile practitioners and organizations realize that project managers can add significant value in many situations. The key difference is that their roles and responsibilities look somewhat different. Tip: the value of the project managers is not in their position, but in their ability to make everyone else better. It says, project managers use servant leadership. This is the next page. PMBOK Guide 6th edition defines a project manager as a person assigned by the performing organization to lead the team. Watch the word lead. And that's why when we say project manager, it sounds like management. That's why people kick against the project manager role. The PMI say lead the team. I like the word project leader. It's not very common though. Many project managers are accustomed to being at the center of coordination for the project, tracking and representing the team's status to the rest of the organization. This approach was fine when projects were decomposed into siloed functions. However, in high change projects, there is more complexity than one person can manage. Instead, cross-functional teams coordinate their own work and collaborate with the business representatives, the product owner. When working on an Agile project, project managers shift from being the center to serving. And that's why I said read the servant leadership aspect. It will help you. Shift from being the center to serving the team and the management. In an Agile environment, project managers are servant leaders, changing their emphasis to coaching people who want help, fostering greater collaboration on the team, and aligning stakeholders' needs. As a servant leader, project managers encourage the distribution of responsibility to the team, to those people who have the knowledge to get the work done. So, the summary is this: borrow a few things from the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a servant leader, and that's what the project manager should be in an Agile project. All right. Now, one more thing. This book, the PMBOK Guide, you have a lot of Agile stuff buried in the middle. A lot of you don't know, but I would encourage you for every chapter, read the CTTCs, Concepts, Trends, Tailoring, and Consideration for Agile. Read it. Now, let's use one chapter as an example. Chapter 4. Let's go to the very beginning where we have CTTCs. Page 74. Okay, so wherever you see considerations for Agile/adaptive environments at the beginning of every chapter, please read it. Please, in this book. Now, the good news for those of you that hate lugging it around is that everything that's in this book where it says considerations for Agile/adaptive environment is also in here. But this is a smaller book, right? So a lot of people prefer this. This is on page 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. And that has all the stuff that you need to know that is in the PMBOK Guide. But you still need to read the Concepts, Trends, and Tailoring. Not necessarily because it's Agile, but because a lot of people fly over that and they don't embrace the content as they do the actual process content, but you should. All right. Well, my friends, I think that's it. There's a lot of other very helpful points throughout. In fact, let me be honest with you. Okay. There is one section further down in the book that I would recommend you focus on, because I don't want to assume you've been for Agile training. Maybe you haven't, maybe you have, but okay. So implementing Agile, chapter 5 on page 49, all of these terms talked about, okay? Backlog preparation, backlog refinement, daily stand-ups, retrospectives. So that's page 50, retrospectives, 52, backlog preparation, backlog refinement, daily stand-ups, demonstrations, demos, reviews, page 55, planning for iteration-based Agile, that stuff. Measurement in Agile, some of these things could be helpful. Burn down charts, page 62. These are in the PMBOK guide as well, burn down charts. We also have burn up charts, page 63. Know what those are. And then page 65, Kanban. Understand Kanban, please. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. I know some people are already groaning. Phil, you just gave me 3 more hours of study and I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you so you are not shocked when you get into the exam and you realize a lot of stuff is right from here. Now, for those of you who are like, Phil, I need help. How do I get all this Agile stuff into my head?
We're going to take a look at the Agile Practice Guide. I'm going to show you what it's broken down into, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions along the way. So why don't we start off with a question? I am curious to know if you know the answer to this one. It's a multiple choice question, just like your exam. It says you are the servant leader on a new company initiative. The team is conducting a review meeting with the product owner, and there are disagreements about whether the deliverables, the product increment for the iteration, are acceptable. What step was not adequately completed? What do you think? All right. If you need more time, hit the pause button. I am going to reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1. All right. The answer to this, my friends, is D. The definition of done was not properly addressed by the customer or product owner. When you take a look at the other options, it can be A, because that's not the job of the Scrum Master or coach. B doesn't really have any bearings on this. It happens at the end of the sprint. And C, the product owner failed to adequately define acceptance criteria. This is not the case. In a lot of instances, the acceptance criteria is not necessarily defined by the product owner. But really what this alludes to is whether the deliverables are acceptable. This is talking about the definition of done. So saying a product owner failed to adequately define acceptance criteria, no, that's a collaborative thing. We cannot pin that on the product owner. Remember your user story, role, goal, benefit. Remember the reverse of the index card is where you talk about that acceptance criteria. That is not the product owner's job. You can't say product owner failed to do this. No, this is talking about deliverables and the definition of done. I hope that makes sense to you. So let's jump into our discussion about the Agile Practice Guide. The Agile Practice Guide is a document that the PMI have created as a result of industry need. The project management body of knowledge guide is great, but people need a little bit more understanding about Agile, how it worked, and some great ideas that have emerged from the Agile Practice Guide as PMI partnered with the Agile Alliance. Project teams have used Agile for a while. The Agile Manifesto is great. PMI wanted to amp that up a little bit, and very rightfully so. It has given people a lot of definition and understanding of Agile. It has also enabled them see the various pieces in what we call the Agile umbrella and understand what Agile is at a more detailed level. So I am going to rapidly walk you through what this contains. 1, an introduction to why this book in the first place. 2, an introduction to Agile, definable work versus high uncertainty work. This is where we look at the Stacy complexity model and the continuum of life cycles. The Agile Manifesto and Mindset is splendid. If you haven't read the 4 values and the 12 principles of Agile, this will help you understand what is in the Agile Manifesto. Lean and Kanban, understanding that Agile is one of the subsets of lean thinking. Understanding that Kanban as well is part of that thinking. And they give you an image to sensitize you to this on page 11. So you see all the Agile pieces in the Agile umbrella circle. So you have Scrumban, Crystal, Scrum, AUP, XP, all of them. And then you have Kanban leaning into Agile. So you can see that lean and Agile, Agile and Kanban, I beg your pardon, are subsets of lean. So they give you an image to see that. And then they talk about uncertainty risk and life cycle selection. And if you're working on high uncertainty work or low uncertainty work or very predictable work or not, they give you the Stacy complexity model to check that out. They also give you page 18 and 19, which show you iterative characteristics, incremental characteristics, agile and predictive characteristics. And then we go into chapter 3, which talks about life cycle selections. Now, this is going even deeper into what I just said, because you're now beginning to see the Stacy complexity model amped up into the continuum of life cycles. The idea about agile suitability filters, which also leads you to the annex, by the way, of this really cool publication. We also have the different types of life cycles of a hybrid nature, predictive followed by agile, predictive with a little bit of agile injected into it, or agile with a little bit of predictive, or agile followed by a predictive rollout, or however you see it. It was predictive and agile together. I think that's the other one. So all of this is on page, I believe, 27, 28. You see all of these hybrid life cycles talked about. Really good dialogue that they have in there. And then it goes into implementing Agile, creating an Agile environment. So understanding the servant leader, the role of the servant leader, what servant leaders do, project managers using servant leadership, and how project managers should think. And it's really just all about the tenets of servant leadership wrapped up really nicely. What do servant leaders do? Well, they communicate, they develop community, they are empathetic, things like that. They all talked about team composition, agile teams, agile roles, the concept of generalizing specialists, T-shaped scales, broken comb, I-shaped, all that stuff is in there. Team structures, how those look in the world of agile, the importance of having dedicated team members, what team workspaces could look like, the concept of the fishbowl, many things like that. Then we go into chapter 5, which is implementing agile, delivering it in an agile environment. So here we talk about the importance of chartering, project charters, team charters, very important. They both do different things. Your project charter, which they also refer to as an agile project charter, does something totally different than a team charter, also known as a team agreement or known as team contract or social contract. All these terms are mentioned in chapter 5. You got to be really good with the concept of chartering, especially your team charter, okay? Because I know many of you know project charters from previous worlds, but just be aware that the product roadmap, the project charter, the team charter, they all do different things, all right? Then common agile practices I've talked about here, retrospectives, backlog preparation, backlog refinement. And I mean, some of these, we call them other things in the world of Scrum, for example. So we would say backlog refinement and sprint planning instead of backlog refinement and backlog preparation. But it's pretty much the same thing. Daily stand-ups or daily Scrum, demos or reviews, which is really code for sprint review, planning for iteration-based agile, which is really more along the lines of what you do leading up to your backlog being ready for the sprints and so on. Execution practices that help the team deliver value, also talked about here. Iterations and increments, how those help deliver work in product. Troubleshooting agile, measurements in agile projects, lots of great stuff here. That goes into chapter 6, which talks about change management and understanding the concept of change at a macro level and a medium level and a micro level. It's all going to help you if you're one taking the exam. What I like about chapter 6 is if you're getting ready for an agile transformation, well, these are things you better be aware of, not just by reading them, but also giving them a lot of think. So if you're in a PMO, what should an Agile PMO be thinking? Value. An Agile PMO should be invitation oriented. You want those people who are going to engage with the PMO to deliver value to be invited, right? An Agile PMO has multidisciplinary facets to it. You want people who are capable and aware to deliver value from a number of perspectives, whatever those are, depending on the company need. Then we talk about organizational structure and evolving the organization. And I'll just say here that go to the annex because there's a very helpful tool, the Agile Radar, and that's going to help you understand if your organization is a good fit for Agile or not. And chapter 7, call to action. So my friends, that's the summary. And I know lots of you struggle. Lots of you struggle with Agile. And for that reason, I put together a program that's going to be a recurring program. It's going to be a recurring program.
In this power review, we're going to power through the entire Agile Practice Guide. You do know that the PMP exam has a lot of Agile emphasis, and for that reason, the Agile Practice Guide should be understood to get you into an accelerated zone and propel you to excellence on your exam. Chapter 1 is all about the introduction. Chapter 2 is about an introduction to Agile. We'll take a look at definable work versus high uncertainty work, the Agile Manifesto and mindset, lean and the Kanban method, and uncertainty, risk, and life cycle selection. And then we'll go into chapter 3, where we take a look at various images and schematics that the PMI have developed to help you better understand when to choose iterative, predictive, incremental, and agile. We'll take a look at the concept of agile suitability filters, hybrid life cycles, combined agile and predictive approach, predominantly predictive approaches with some agile, largely agile approaches with a predictive component. And then we'll take a look at the understanding of hybrid life cycles as fit for purpose and as a transition strategy. We'll take a look at everything in chapter 3 that involves mixing agile approaches and project factors that influence tailoring. We'll then go into chapter 4. At a high level, we'll take a look at starting with an agile mindset, servant leadership, and team composition. And as we go through these, we'll be covering servant leader responsibilities, the role of the project manager in an agile environment, project managers using servant leadership, agile teams, roles, generalizing specialists, T-shaped skills, I-shaped skills, broken comb, all that stuff, team structures, the importance of dedicated team members, teamwork spaces, and overcoming organizational silos. And then we'll go into chapter 5. At a high level, we'll take a look at the importance of chartering, whether it's project chartering and team chartering. We'll take a look at all of those common agile practices, be it retrospectives, backlog preparation, refinement, daily stand-ups, demos, planning for iteration-based agile, which is really code for sprint planning, execution practices that help teams deliver value, how iterations and increments help deliver working product. And we'll take a look at measurements in Agile, burn up charts, burn down charts, feature charts, all that stuff. And then we'll go into chapter 6. We'll cover the importance of change management, drivers of change, readiness for change, the importance of organizational structure, creating an environment of safety, assessing culture. Then we'll go into procurements and contracts on page 77 and try and get the essence of these procurements and contracts from an agile perspective. We'll go into business practices, multi-team coordination, frameworks, and considerations. We'll talk a little bit about scaling, the likes of less, large-scale Scrum, DA, and the like. We'll cover some of those. And then we'll go into the PMO, the importance of the Agile PMO, how it is value-driven, invitation-oriented, and multidisciplinary. We'll take a look at organizational structure and the evolving the organization, and a call to action is chapter 7. And that will be the entire gamut, my friends, of the Agile Practice Guide covered for you. We're going to go through, I'll be asking you questions along the way. They're going to be exercises. There's going to be the opportunity for you to ask questions. Now, with all of this said, you do know that there's a heavy Scrum emphasis on the exam. And for that reason, we will be covering Scrum. We will be covering the 3-5-3 and getting you to understand the essence of Scrum, getting you to understand the essence of product backlogs, sprint backlogs, PSI, MVP, all of those terms, and the essence of all those 5 ceremonies plus backlog refinement. So this is one you absolutely do not want to miss. Take a look for the sign up button, thorough, rapid review of the Agile Practice Guide to get you in ship shape for the PMP exam. So we look forward to seeing you. Let's do this.
The Agile Practice Guide is a very important ingredient for your PMP exam, and lots of professionals who have gotten certified in the past 6 months since PMI changed the exam in 2021 will tell you just that. In fact, a lot of them will tell you that the PMP exam has upwards of 60 to 70% of Agile. Some folks will even tell you it got up to 90% in Agile and Hybrid. Just ask enough PMPs. You'll find that Agile is huge. For that reason, we're going to be having the Agile Practice Guide Power Review. And this is going through the entire Agile Practice Guide. If you haven't been through the Agile Practice Guide before, no problem. Show up for training and we will take you through the entire guide. I encourage you, go on down to agileaficionado.com, sign up, and we will look forward to seeing you.